So again, would you introduce me?
Sure, of course. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our next lecture. It's the fifth lecture of our Startup Academy for University course, pre-acceleration program for those who would like to launch their startup idea. And today we are talking about problem solution fit and specifically about how to define a problem which you can solve via your startup and to find the client segment which will be happy to use your solution. And today we have our speaker, Andrei Subotin, so who is a founder, mentor, and investor. He has a really interesting international traction of development of international business. He invested in several startups himself, and so today he is with us to share his experience, his business experience, his experience with development of the startups. Andrei, welcome. How are you doing today?
Hi, Evgeny. Glad to get your intro. Finally, you invited me several times, to make different speeches here and there. So this is my first time experience, doing kind of podcast type of thing. Really appreciate it. Just checking out whether you hear me well, and it's streaming according to the plan.
Yeah, everything is okay. So we hear, we see you, and thank you for being here, sharing your experience. So we are looking forward to hear what you prepared for us.
Awesome. So before we start, let me just share some logistics and of how the presentation will work. I'm connecting to you today, guys, with from Turkey, and every country has different internet connections. Some are more friendly to the international web, some are less. So please excuse me beforehand if there will be any hiccups, any delays in connection. We smoothed it beforehand, but life is unexpected. So today my presentation would last for like 40-50 minutes. Then I leave most time for your questions. I'll be answering any type of questions, not necessarily connected with my presentation. The only thing I would ask you to put down your questions as soon as they come up to your mind, but I won't answer them during the presentation. I will answer all of them after the presentation, just to make sure that we fit in our time schedule. So if everybody's ready, I'm excited to present you my angle on this subject, which is problem solution fit and problem part. And I decided to call it from the bottom of my heart, find the problem you love, because I've been solving many problems during my career. And the more I'm getting further in my with my next ventures, the more I understand that the problem is the essence of what we are doing, and not necessarily the traction part, the money part, the all the things connected with the startup. Once you do the things you love, you just keep doing it. So let me start with my intro. As Evgeny mentioned, why in general you guys probably should listen to something coming out of my mouth. Well, I'm practically like 15 years doing startups and different businesses, so I'm pretty mature in this thing, yet still young, because every year I understand that I know nothing about it. You know nothing, Jon Snow. That's what I hear in my head. And yet I had some success. So I built quite a successful international startup, Richie. It's a developer, manufacturer, distributor, and brand company for the electronic cigarettes. We started back in the end of 2009. Then I moved to China, Initially it's been an e-com, then we become the distributor, then I moved to China with my co-founder. We started the manufacturing facility there, and then it just grew from there. So we made an international sales, international team. That's how I ended up in Czech Republic, where we opened out European distribution center, and so on, so on. So we opened like 4 distribution centers. By the time I left as a CEO of the company, we've been turning more than close to 20 million US dollars annually. Very profitable business. Been nice doing it. Yet I decided like to move forward. So I have other businesses. Currently, I'm really focused on this instant grocery delivery, which is fresh. So I'm the co-founder of the project. I also have some side projects, and recently I started mentoring and investing. Just a couple of investments, but I'm pretty curious on how the things would evolve. So any of you guys, going forward, will have some interesting ideas. You can connect with me anytime. I'm always happy to give you feedback and potentially, like become your angel investor. But the last part, which is probably, which I appreciate even more probably than the previous ones, is that I'm many times loser, and this is the thing that very often, let's say, hidden from you guys when you start thinking about the startup. You normally, what you hear is like success, 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 but the real truth of the startups and business in itself is that you gotta fail many times before you really do something useful. So I would put here the line of like those startups or ventures that I've been starting and I had to close down and lost money on. And I really appreciate, because mistakes makes you stronger. Mistakes is the really experience, where you build your experience practically. So going forward with the problem, when I sat down and started to think about this presentation, about the topic, I thought like, okay, so there is a certain agenda that how this topic might be promoted on the web. Like when you get along with how to do the startup, how to find the problem, you practically deal with the voices of bloggers, journalists, investors, many times academics, theorists, those um, who really will tell you smart things like take a big market, focus on this segment, follow the trendy stuff, like do this thing because that guy did it and it worked out. The biggest problem, like from my experience with these songs, that those guys that they have practically no experience in startups. They just read about the startups, and they have different motivations. For example, investor would always push you in the direction of like his motivations, how to triple, tenfold, like return his investments many times, rather than really help you build something useful for yourself. So that is why I decided to make a presentation from, not from the classic perspective, but from my perspective as a founder. And not just a founder, because there is like also very fancy founders, around. You can see those guys on the slides, like practically all of them, they became successful with their first startup, right? So they never had this series of losses, like when they make the fifth, the sixth, the seventh startup and they fail, like, and then they win. So this is also a little bit like down to earth, realistic perspective that I want to give you today, because survival bias, might bring you not in the right direction. Well, the matter of the fact is that 95% of you will fail with the first startup, most likely with the second startup as well, and with the third, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. And the only reason you got to play this game, like if in short, my presentation, we'll have a lot of slides, a lot of information, but in essence, if you just take this one statement, I'll be more than happy. So In the situation when the odds are worse than in the casino, like 95% you will fail. All of you, right? Including myself. So the only reason to do it is to solve the problem you really love. Because the problem, once you're solving the problem you love, you wake up every morning, you go to work, and you're happy. And no matter like how the things turn out, you keep it in your memories as a happiest period of your life, right? And those are the things, the intrinsic motivation that keeps real founders forward. And that is why I'll share you with my mistakes, with how to make fast mistakes, but only for one certain reason, like that you got to find the problem you really love solving. So let's start with the basics. What is a startup? Just to make sure that we are on the same page. Startup is the hypothesis of growth. Startup is disrupting something, right? It's an opportunity to grow really, really fast. But at the same time, it is still a hypothesis. As Evgeny mentioned to me, you guys are coming from different backgrounds. So probably there's computer science people here, like physics, mathematics, but at the same time, economists and some other humanitarian sciences might be here. So you got to perceive startup as a scientific project, practically. And success in this case is just the number of experiments that you run, and that's how majority of the startups succeed, because you gotta think of, to win is not to fail, right? To win is not to die, first of all. So the very first thing, when your odds are, again, like 95% odds that you'll fail, like the only thing that you can really keep under control is how to live another day, right? How to live long enough to win. How to live like this, this Edison's bulb, this famous electric bulb, right? 10,000, 1,000 to 10,000, experiments he had to make before he really invented the thing. So, and here I start with the basic principle that I love. I landed it from Charlie Munger, who is a famous partner of Warren Buffett. And he says, he's famous for his mental models. He says, like, invert, always invert. So when you start doing something, you want to achieve something, think opposite, right? Like what might stop you from achieving it, right? So why startups fail? What might stop you from succeeding in the startup? And as I look at it, there are practically, from my experience, three main things. You die from the starvation most often. I mean, like, you pretty much run out of cash and you just need to go and start doing something else. Founders give up. So they just fed up with what they're doing, and they just raise the white flag and go home. Or you do something really useless. And practically, if you solve these three problems, you win. I mean, sooner or later you win. That's why if you look into really history of successful startups, like majority of successful startups, they win so-called 3 years test. So it's not like that. You start to do it, and like Mark Zuckerberg, you just you win, like in that movie, like this famous movie, Social Network or whatever it's called, right? So it normally takes you hardships of 3 years of being unknown by anybody, being not needed, even unwelcome, being ignorant. And only after that, if you pass this 3 years test, you practically have a high chances to win. So to live these 3 years, you gotta pretty much follow the following advice. Stay lean, find your feet, talk and iterate. And this will be 3 parts of my today's presentation. So I will go one by one, which of them, because in essence, when we talk about the problem, you never have a great problem to solve from the day one. problem is an iterative process. You start with one experiment of problem, second, third. It's not like you like buy a book. You find a problem, then you find a solution, and then you just scale. Like you make an MVP and everything works. Not really. It's always an iteration. Most part of these 3 years, you will keep shifting a little bit your problem understanding, clarifying it. Solution will come with that. So that is why it's not how you find the problem, but how you try to find it many, 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 many times. So that's why we start with Stalin. Are we here? Everything is fine, Evgeny? Just let me know.
Yeah, everything
Evgeny?
okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so we keep rock and rolling. Stalin, this is the first part. This is practically how we want to win those 3 years. And again, starting with always invert mental model of Charlie Munger. You need to make sure that you have cash for yourself. Your co-founders have cash for themselves, and your colleagues and early employees have cash. So because any of those, when you run out of cash, you're done. That's it. So that is why the very first thing, what you gotta do, you gotta stay employed. You don't buy, people. You share equity with them, and you start sales from day one. And I'll explain you in details every of those aspects. So this lady, probably some of you know her. She's pretty famous writer, Alice Bill Gilbert. But I really love her saying, she says, you can't let your art pay for your life when you start. Practically what she did, she never quit a job and started writing. She kept working, and she kept writing at the same time because she knew that it would take her years, if no more, to really succeed in, and get published. Why is it so important to keep working, or at least like to have some cash? Because you might end up in the scarcity mindset, and this is the worst thing you can get into, because scarcity mindset is a closed mindset, because it's a stressful mindset. Like it is opposite from the startup mindset, because you need to invent something never existed. You need to be super creative. And now you have cash for 1 month, 2 months. Like you don't think about how to make something valuable, something really new. You just think how to survive. And that is why it's very important, that you keep some day work, or you have some gigs, like, and you keep running them before you really find some traction. Here's an example of the startup that I'm currently invested into. They do the LinkedIn Messenger. Very interesting project. But that's the explanation how you follow the second idea of don't buy share. The founder of it, Vyacheslav, you see all those guys on on the left side, right? The 6 people, 5 without the main founder. So, and if you see their descriptions, they are very highly experienced developers. Like 20 years, 10 years, 4 years, 10 years in sales. Like lead UX designer, right? So those people they cost quite a money in the market, but the budget of this startup is close to 1,000 euro a month. So really small. Like if Vyacheslav would hire all those people, he would really have to pay them like 20, maybe 30,000 euros, like total. How he did it, he practically went out into the market, and he just like angel list, LinkedIn, GitHub, and just started looking for the people he really would be interested to work with, or at least discuss his ideas. So he started to write, and you know what? When you start to talk to people, they answer, and they are interested to chat, especially if you have some basic interesting idea to talk about. And that's how he built some in pretty short period of time. And for the exchange of like just like 10 or 15% of equity, I mean options pool, he attracted quite a talent into his team, and he started to move like 10 times faster. So that's the idea of don't buy shares. So don't really pay anybody. Just attract some people and share with them the equity of the startup. Find co-founders practically. And the third thing is that never start without a business model, meaning never start scaling without a business model. Never start spending money without business model, because might be led by this flashy name. Later, many years they started to earn money, so it's not important to earn money for the startup. This is bullshit. I mean, like, this is a practical, biggest probably bullshit that
Andrei,
why many
sorry,
startups died.
we lost sound on last sentences. Can you repeat with this with the start of this slide?
Sure. You never start without the business model. You never start spending cash without a business model, because you might be confused by this idea of Facebook and TikTok and any other flashy startups who just started growing without knowing how they earn money or without earning money at all. But that represents just a very exclusive minority of the startups, less than 1%, I would say. The rest majority of the startups, they really earn money. Think, how you gonna earn money, how you gonna start sales, and that will help you in identifying the real problems that you gotta solve, and just nice to have problems that practically people are using your product, but they're not willing to pay for it. So you can waste a lot of time and money on this thing. So this presentation is not about the business models, right? I just wanted to express you here the example of, there are practically like 9 well-known business models. Some of them are just selling the goods, some of them are selling the hardware, some of them subscription-based, and so on. So just think about it at the same time while you are working on your problem. And just to show you an example here, so for example, 2 startups that I just recently invested into, and absolutely following this base sales coaching and geek work. So just to make sure he's covering his needs, he's paying his bills. That's the story I told you, how he collected for senior engineers on equity only, and he has a very clear focus on SaaS. That's also what gives me an understanding, and him understanding that the future is how he earned money is clear. Emerly, another startup, has a little bit higher monthly burn. They started like the key founder like kept part-time in use, which is like another startup he's been working on. He collected the other 2 co-founders who also worked part-time on the project. Just recently they started to work full-time since they raised some money. So, and again, they have clear focus on. So again, those are the examples. I hope that's again why it is important. You want to have 3 years in your pocket. You will keep searching for the problem long enough, and it might be as long as 3 years. So make sure you survive. Second part, find your fit. This is the heart of my presentation. It's very sensitive to me personally, because it's all about like why we do the startups in the first place. And actually, I'm a big believer, you do the startups because you want to be happy doing startups, not because you want to be unhappy. And the common sense is simple. If you are solving not your
Yeah,
problem,
Andrew,
like not
we
the problem
again
you're really
lost
interested
you.
in. Well, you will end up in two alternatives, right? Both of which are bad enough. One is most likely you will give up on solving this problem sooner than later, and like 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, maybe 1 year down the line. And the second, even if you succeed, you will compromise because you will keep scaling something which you don't like solving. And this is funny thing. You are unhappy while you are starting. You are unhappy if you fail, and you are unhappy if you win. And I can tell you that it's especially comes into play when you're doing this long enough to understand that money is not really why you should do the startup, and some fame or whatever. It's not really. Um, I give an example of my recent startup, right? Fresh. This is an instant grocery delivery. We just look around with my partner into the market and said, okay, so we have some experience here and there. So which problems we might be solving good in this market. So, and we picked this one. And I've been driving this pretty motivated for a while, like for 3 months or 4 months. Talking to investors, building the product, like we've been pretty quick and successful with that. I'll give you many examples during this presentation. But at some point, I just started to understand that, well, I don't really feel this is the problem I want to solve. I'm not that excited, like to really drive this thing for the next year, next 2 years, 3 years. And lucky enough, I have a co-founder. So I met with him. I said, look, you'll say, like this is not exactly my fit. He said, fair enough, but that's my fit, he told me. I said, fair enough. So what about we just switching the seats? Like you keep driving as the CEO and I keep supporting you as a product guy. And that released me from this responsibility hurdle. So I don't like 100% responsible for the thing, and I can do some other things at the same time, looking for my fit. But at the same time, the thing kept going. But if I wouldn't, from my experience, if I wouldn't understand that that's the moment when I got a shift, I could end up, like raising funds and scaling some business that I would compromise on. And you see, even me having some experience in this thing, I haven't built some startups, and I still, understand it very sensitive because it's not only about being unhappy, being inefficient. You will be very, very inefficient if you're solving not your problem. And going forward, I'll try to help you to understand, how to find your problem. At the same time, yeah, if you're solving your problem, that's, for example, the case with my first startup, Richie. At least first 5 years of it, I've been super happy doing this business. You really persevere because you face a lot of problems, incredible number of problems you're gonna face. You're gonna face that you are running out of cash, that people are living on you, the customers are living on you, like that. Things every day is a fight. But if you really love what you are doing and solving the problem, yeah, it's absolutely okay. It's just part of the journey. And if you succeed, like that's awesome. You just and you're happy now solving it. You are happy once you are facing problems, and you're happy if you succeed. Um, that's called in the investment world. They coined this word founder market fit. Um, Originally, it meant that you gotta invest into the founders who have some experience in the field, um, meaning like if you are solving some biotech, you gotta have some medical degree, right, or PhD in this, or some experience, at least like 5 to 10 years experience. But over time, this term, you know, exploded into more explanations, especially in my world. I split it into three parts, and experience is the least one. First one is obsession, that you really, this drive, this greed, they call it. So once you really solve your problem, it leaves some marks. And I'll explain you how it works. Then founder story, like the real problem is a real founder story. Like it's not something that you can imitate. It's not something that you can grab from the blog post. It is something that really resonates when people, and with you, first of all, right? Because you might be now thinking about the startups as these three things. And I guarantee you, from my certain experience, that if you follow any of those motivations, you will be unhappy. Not necessarily you will fail, which is most likely in my view, but you definitely will be unhappy. If you want to build a unicorn, like this flashy thing, statistically speaking, you have no chance of building it. The same thing like becoming an Olympic champion. Everybody wants. Few become. If you follow the hype, okay, there is a trendy technology. I don't know, like this blockchain, cryptocurrencies, whatever people create today. Every day is a hype, right? So or you really go doing startups for money, which is the worst idea in this world, because mathematically it's been proven already a long time ago that startups is the worst way to make money. You will earn much more if you just go and build a career in the field you like, and you stay long enough to grow. So here is an example of the true stories, in my best understanding of the true stories, which result in obsession going forward. Here is like my initial co-founder, Max, with whom we built Richie. Recently, he just said, "Look, I really want to build an organization, a movement, for smokers' rights." You say, "What the fuck?" Oh, sorry for my language. What the hell is smokers' rights, right? My initial reaction been the same, but as he started to tell me his motivations about it, I really started to get high. Like it's like, wow. It doesn't necessarily resonate with me because I'm not like a real smoker, but I believe his story, because he said, "Look, Andre, like we've been doing this electronic cigarettes just because I've been a smoker and I wanted to quit, and that was the best way I could do it. But now I see, like that a lot of smokers are just, they are restrained from learning, that there a lot of opportunities exist down there in the world to help them quit. And because of the government, the lobby, and all the stuff, and nobody cares because people believe that smokers are sick, they're stupid, and blah blah blah. So that is why I'm building it. And you know what? Like this story is real because it's his story, and he's been able to unite quite a number of people. They're protesting in Geneva, like next week. And in just a matter of months, he's been able to collect people around because it resonates, because it's a true story of his life. And similar like to those guys below, like here is a story like of B2B sales who've been kicked out from LinkedIn. He'd been banned of LinkedIn. So he said, "What the hell, like I've been just unrevocably like be banned from LinkedIn. How I got to do my job." So he started to build the LinkedIn Messenger, like so such things never happen to anybody else. Or there's an engineer who's been working in HoReCa, hotel, restaurants, cafeteria area, and once he just walked into the restaurant, he'd been serviced for more than an hour just to get his coffee. Those are real stories, and you believe them, and that's what drives like the motivation of the startup. This is the intrinsic motivation of the startup. And if you have a true personal story, then it may turn into manifesto that you put on your website or in your pitch. And this is like a magnet starts to attract other people because they believe you, because you are true, you are consistent. And yeah, this is a real problem because you faced it in reality, right? It's not something you invented out of your inflamed imagination. If to look from the perspective of artifacts, right? So some signs that you really have an obsession, you really have a true story. Me as an investor, like how I see it, or how I evaluate my obsession, for example, it's how deep you can go, like how really deep you investigate the customers, the market, competition, and everything. Because if you really want to solve the problem, you want to pick up every stone, you want to look into every corner, you really want to make sure you help, you do make a difference, right? Because if it's just a very external motivated idea that you want to solve, you're afraid. You're afraid that you will find some competitor who is doing it better than you. You're afraid that the customer would say that your idea is bullshit. Like you are always afraid because you want to build a unicorn and these bloody bastards, like they just stopping you from doing it. But if you really want to solve the problem, then you're not afraid, right? So you just keep learning, 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 and learning. And this results in this kind of slides where you can really describe all the details about the competitive situation, solutions, like customer feedbacks, researchers, this and that, a lot of information. And once you come after investments, the real investor sees it very quickly. Professional investor immediately sees whether you know something or you know shit. It's very important that you end up there. So knowledge is the true sign of obsession, and the deep knowledge is the best out of it. The least part is experience. Frankly speaking, you can't do something useful without enough experience. It's those like 10,000 hours that you got to spend on the subject normally. Maybe not 10,000, maybe 3,000 or something, but some thousand of hours you need to spend there. And it depends from the problem you are trying to solve, because the more like deep tech or biotech, the more scientific the problem is, the more years you got to spend there. The more corporates or B2B, right? The problem is you also need to spend like around like 5 years. B2C is probably the simplest from those, but you can see here it's a curve, right? So it's very important that you stay on the subject long enough, but not longer, because then you become conservative. Like you start to follow the inertia way. You just believe those are the things, and they should be solved certain way, not the other. So you are less prone for disruption. I understand you guys primarily students, and that's not your case. But probably, if you are not onto something for like 3-5 years by now, if you are not doing some part-time job, if you are not doing some side projects, pet projects, so you don't really start with building startup from scratch. You rather spend some years working on finding the subject you love, and naturally out of that will come you will see some problems that you want to solve, and you'll solve quick enough. So this is the last thing in this part. So we've got 3 years. So now we have intrinsic motivation in the pocket, right? So we got the quantity, now we have the quality of those 3 years. Now we come to the practical part. So what exactly we got to do, right? So now I'm ready. I think I'm in. Tell me, Andrei, what I got to do. I call it like talk and iterate, because startups are always about iterations, and startups is never closed systems. Startups is always open systems. So you got to talk to your colleagues, customers, market, competition, and so on. Let's start with the basic elements of what actually we are doing in the startup. There is an interesting theory of inventive problem solving, and practically it says that every solution strives for perfection. What does it mean? It means that you see on the bottom there is a problem and a solution. So practically, the ideal solution of any problem is just, let's say, one click. Yeah? So if I wanna, buy something, the best thing is I just wanna click, or I just wanna say, Siri, buy me an ice cream, and I don't want to spend more time on it. I don't want to think about the price. I don't want to. So an ice cream arrives immediately, right, on my table. This is an ideal perfection. But normally the reality of life is different, right? So if I want to buy an ice cream, I need to, okay, so where I can buy an ice cream, I go to Google. Okay, here is the cafeteria. So I need to, put my shoes on, then make sure it's open, go there, take cash, like stay in the queue, like buy the ice cream, and like it takes you, like, and it's an exercise. So, and if you look like in practical perspective, every startup is simplifying certain process from the problem to the solution. So that is what I show you on the upper side. So normally it takes you several steps and connected with that costs and time and so on, like to get to the solution of your need. And the best startups, they come and they just remove some of those steps. And I will show you how it works, like on some examples. So when you start to think about the problem, practically all the problems that being solved in this world, like in B2C, for example, it is how to get something to customer faster, how to get something to customer cheaper, or how to improve his choice. Yeah. So this is the mantra of, for example, Amazon. Amazon is e-commerce. They don't really do much of products, but even if we do the electronic cigarettes, so we thought, okay, how we to help smokers, how we could deliver nicotine faster, for example, how we could make it cheaper than the common cigarettes, combustible cigarettes, so they are more willing, to give up smoking, or how we can give them a wider variety of flavors, for example. So, and when it comes to B2B, B2B is more ground down to earth, less emotions there. So B2B solutions are very simple. Your solution either helping to increase the sales, decrease the costs, or replace some human work. Yeah, and here is like a bit tedious slide. It's how you can, if you have some area you are interested in. So this is how you can start, investigating. You just look from the process or from the criteria classification. Here is an example of my current startup, which is Fresh. It's an instant groceries delivery. So you can go from the process side, which is normal, what it takes for people to buy something. So there is an ordering part, there is a payment part, there is a delivery, and there is some post support part. So normally if you use here's Tesco, for example, you gotta walk there, you gotta stand in line, grab your stuff and walk home with it. And if you have some problem, you gotta get back to the store and start solving the problem. Well, what we do here, like how we improve the process, we just make the ordering process much faster because you have a mobile app. So it's like 30 seconds versus, 15 minutes probably walk. We make one-click payment with Apple Pay. The delivery comes pretty instantly, like 15 minutes, and you have an immediate resolution. So you see, like it's all about the speed, and we improve, the process from this perspective. But you also can, if you know the customers good enough and you know how they make the decisions in your area. For example, in retail, people make decisions in the following order, exactly in the following order, not the opposite. So they want to see the big assortment. They want to make sure that it's available on the shelf. They want a convenience, the speed. They want a nice experience, so nobody's rude with them, nobody's like slow, and only then comes price, right? And here is again, how you can look for your innovations in certain criterias. Again, that might not resonate with you right now, but just think about it like there is a process that you can optimize to make it more perfect to the customer or for the another business, B2B business. And there is criteria, like decision-making criteria, how people are choosing that. So the result of that, you gotta have some initial hypothesis. You will have many hypotheses going down the line, so you will repeat this process many, many times, but you gotta have it as simple as this. When people want to get X, they do Y. While they do Y, they struggle with Z. So this is your statement, an idea that there is something wrong in this world when people do something, right? So you clarify some behavioral aspects. So here I give you several examples, like practical ones. When people want to sell B2B via LinkedIn, like people go to, and do the sales, they use LinkedIn Messenger. There is no other options practically. While they use it, they struggle with sorting, categorization, import, export. That results lose focus in up to 30% of sales. So there are so-called like CRM systems in the market, the customer relationship management. They are all designed for the productivity of sales. But when you start doing it via LinkedIn, you practically has no way how to do it. So that's how in Gura, one of the startups I invested in, they just started to solve it. They just said, okay, I'll help salespeople to do it much faster and increase the sales. Again, my startup, when people want to buy groceries, they go to the convenience store. While they go there, they waste up to 1 hour on walking, hanging, and waiting. And this is a real problem. Not for everybody. This is an important aspect. Not everybody cares about it. Most likely busy people care about it. Busy people are those who, do some business, who are digitally savvy normally and, live in the big cities. So again, like you try to identify who the most have the problem potentially and talk to them. And another example is like when people want to manage their restaurant, for restaurant owners, right? They use 3-4 separate systems. While they do use them, they waste up to 3% margin. Well, this is the boring stuff for some of you, right? But it's all about how you help the restaurant owner to earn more money, right? So that's a practical statement. Then you have it in your pocket, then you go out there and test it. So don't do it without having hypothesis, at least some raw one in your pocket. But then what happens? You start to talk. First, you got to talk to your co-founder. If you don't have one, find one. Ideally, you got to find two. Why? Because it is very hard to do the startup. It's very hard to talk to yourself 24/7, especially if you're doing it for 3 years, right? And you will never be good enough in everything, right? Normally, a good combination is that you have some business person who is doing the sales, for example. There is a tech person, a product person who can do the product, and there is an operational person. But no matter what, you got to have somebody to talk with. And if you are not able to sell your idea or hypothesis to those people, well, most likely this problem doesn't exist, or it makes no sense, right? So this is the first level of your validation of your problem. So once everybody is agreed, yeah, let's start research, and then you guys go and start talking to experts. This is a funny thing because everybody would tell you that you got to talk to customers. Well, there is a big problem because I've been doing it a lot. I spoke to hundreds of customers. And there is one problem. You never know, especially at this stage, when you don't know the market yet well, which problem you are solving. And you might be very much misled by the customers because you don't know how to classify them well. You don't know how to average their responses or their feedbacks. So if you're looking for a problem in a certain area, the best thing is just find the experts there. And once you speak to 5, 10 at least experts, you will have a very, very good understanding if the problem is there and which type of customers you got to talk to, potential users of your product. So how you do it very, very simple. you just do it. Okay, so here is the statement. Just copy it and use it for whatever purpose. Talking with anybody. Hi, my name is Andre or Christina or George or whatever. I'm working on this problem. Would you have time for 20 minutes talk? I'd like to learn from your experience. People love giving advice. People don't want to be you sell them something, but they are willing to share with you their experience. Why? Because this is our basic biological need. We want to support our status. So once we share our advice, you know once we feel that we are listened to, our feedback is important. We feel it's like dopamine or endorphins are coming to our brain. So it's a short introduction into the biology, but it works. I've done it many times, and I just tell you, okay, half or maybe 2/3 of your respondents wouldn't reply, the others will, and you will talk with them. And then once you speak to the expert, he really would tell you a ton of interesting things, as long as you are willing to listen. Then definitely talk to users. You got to talk to the right users, but start with anybody. I mean, like anyone you can talk to, just talk. Talk to your friends, talk to your relatives. If you believe you have no way to talk to your users, then stop doing what you are doing, because then you would have no clue whether you are doing something useful. Again, the easiest way in this world, we practiced it a lot. You write the same message, like to people. You need to clarify how you classify them, how you distinguish the right from the wrong. It's pretty simple. Like you see, if your statement, initial statement here, it's pretty much describes like whom you should look for. So in the first case, you got to look for B2B sales who do the LinkedIn sales. So this is how you got to go and look for them. If I want to buy, if I'm targeting, people buying in the grocery store, this is the easiest exercise ever. So I can start talking to people on the streets, which is probably the most stupid thing, but I can talk to anybody within my group who is doing it. And if you are trying to validate the problem in the restaurant sector, well, talk to the owners. That's what exactly the guy's been doing. They just walked into the restaurants and said, "Can I talk to your manager?" Because like I'm doing some research, whatever. Yeah. So don't try to present yourself that you are not a salesperson, because practically you are not selling. You're trying to help. So you gotta just walk in and do this. These are the numbers. I mean, like really, you gotta talk to this number of experts to start understanding something, because very often the problem you start with is not exactly the problem. They will show you another problem to be solved, or like with users, it's the same, right? So don't look at it as just rigid exercise. This exercise really brings you lots of new information that you can put into practice of adjusting your initial hypothesis. How to talk. I won't. This is a small lecture in itself. There is a mom's test. Like there is a book. If you know, read it. There is a short 20 minutes lecture, How to Talk to Users by Y Combinator lecture. I like it because it's short and it's simple. It's common sense. So you talk. You got to remember just a couple of things, right? So you talk about how people are doing something, and what's the hardest thing about it. Your initial hypothesis already should tell you what to ask about, right? So there is certain process that they're going through. For example, the B2B sales is messaging his leads or prospects in LinkedIn. So you just go step by step. Okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? What's the hardest thing about it? And you try to break down the process into the several parts, or how the person is going after shopping, right? After groceries, or how the restaurant manager is managing his restaurant in his systems, software systems, right? Different processes. So you got to be analytical here. But then you try to find the pain points, right? And pain points should be validated as well, because you want to rate the level of frustration. Ultimately, you are looking for the highest frustration. People are most willing to pay for them, and rate the frequency of those frustrations, right? Because if I have a frustration with, like having too many tabs in my browser, like how frequent is it? Maybe it's as frequent as like once a month when I just restart my computer, and that's it. Like the problem is solved. Um, but that's important also to understand here whether they are solving it right now somehow here, because if you talk to the restaurant owner about his problems managing a restaurant, but he's not doing anything about it, he's not having the Excel sheet, he's not paying for any system, that's probably you just walk out, like, because he would tell you, oh yeah, it's a common problem. People tell you, oh yeah, it's a problem. What do you do about it? I don't do anything about it. That's it. That is why it's very important when you do this simple, very simple. Again, watch this video. It will tell you how to do it. When you do those interviews, follow these three basic rules. I keep it on, at the corner of my um, database when I do the um, customer development. I always read those rules. Talk about their life, not about your idea. Because normally, if you think about problem to solve, you have normally some idea that you solve. So forget about your idea, your solution. Just talk or just listen. People will tell you the truth. Talk specifics, never hypotheticals, right? So you really want to know the facts. Facts meaning something that actually happened. Person actually used this process, actually created some database, actually paid some money, actually, ask support to solve this problem. Like actual facts more important than hypotheticals. And of course, listen. Don't talk, because might be so excited on explaining, oh yeah, I know your problem. Oh, like you can solve it this way, that way. You are here to listen. When you talk to the expert, when you talk to the customer, you just listen. Evgeny, everything is fine. I'm sitting in the silence for long. Works.
Yeah, everything okay.
Cool. Okay, so we are getting to the end soon. So the last thing, which is counterintuitive, but I'm using it quite a lot here as an example, talk to your competitors. That's a funny thing. Normally, you got to do it a little bit later once you are more clear about the problem and even solution you're solving. But that's a funny thing, because even with this, startup fresh that I'm doing right now, we spoke with 5 competitors, and 3 communications turned into magic things. Because we spoke with our competitors back in Russia. That's a big company, and suddenly they started to selling on us the franchise program. And we said, okay, let's take a look. And once they started sell franchise product, they practically described all their business model and showed all the numbers and financial models and everything. So it was just a gift, from the God, because it saved us a lot of learning curve. And again, it's not that like being here manipulative. No way. Here an example of how you get in touch with your competition. Thank you for the connection. I'm doing like I connected him on LinkedIn. I'm doing like this grocery delivery, blah blah blah. It's ambitious. I look for experts to learn and share perspective. Again, this magic thing, like learn and share perspective. What do you think? We chat via Zoom. Like I'm not looking for the secret sauce. And practically, I'm not looking for the secret sauce. I just talk with the competitors. I tell everything about our startup, because we are nobody. Nobody cares about us, and this information has no value. But once you share something valuable with people, because you investigate, you research the market, they are willing to share with you as well. And we had this nice conversation with Nikolai. Another thing, we contacted our competitors, and it turned out that they were running out of cash and you know getting out of the market. And I just said, okay, so what if we just buy your application, buy your uh, infrastructure, just for some peanuts, we bought it. So practically what would take us probably 3 to 6 months to develop on our own, we just bought for some really, really raw money. And that's how it works. Like you talk to people, the market is boiling, and things are happening, especially you build the connections, because going forward, you probably want to hire some people or attract some people for your startup, and network is important. Again, write direct messages, write direct messages to experts, write direct messages to customers, potential users, write direct messages to your competitors. It is easy. This is probably the second most important thing of my today's presentation, guys. If you don't do this, forget about doing startup. As simple as that. If you don't like talking to people, to strangers, start loving it. Find a way how to do it. Just go through this, or find a co-founder who loves doing it, right? But if you won't do this, like your startup will fail 100%, because it's all about the feedback loop. Like how you do the experiment, how you test your hypothesis if you're not getting the feedback on your experiment, right? So that's it, and it will keep going. The best companies in this world, when you hear that, they have it in their blood, in their soul, in their hearts, because it's common sense. So you got to do this. There is a lot of methodologies and ways how you do the customer development, but the problem, I've talked with many startup founders, especially in the beginning, and they're, yeah, I know about it. Do you do this? No, actually, I don't do this. And so the problem is not that you don't know how to do it. The problem is that you don't do it. So, okay, enough for that. Last words, probably cognitive biases. Like, beware of the cognitive biases. There is such thing that your brain um, it will betray you because it's trying to protect your integrity. So it will try to make you happy, to explain everything possible is under control. So it's a very biological thing. So it's well known. Read Daniel Kahneman, this Nobel Prize winner, who is like thinking fast and slow, like something like that. So it's a very nice literature about the cognitive biases. So, but be beware of like at least three. One is the confirmation bias, is when you really made some hypothesis and then you talk to your customers, you collect the facts, but you collect only the facts that support your initial idea. This is so common. This is so stupid. And this is so upsetting. We'll keep doing it. I've been doing it. Definitely, I forgot when I stopped doing it, but beware of it. Normally, having a co-founder, a couple of co-founders, helps with that a lot, because they will just tell you, stop telling bullshitting us. Like there is no fact supporting it. No, but I read it from this interview, or this one told me. So you make sure you have empirically enough data. So that's why you got to talk to a lot of users, at least like 15 to 20 customers, to justify something. And another one is, I am the first one. There's another big problem with the startup founders who started to say, oh, nobody's been solving this problem before. I'm the first one to solve it. Well, let me tell you, I've been an idiot to fall into this trap a couple of times. The truth is that there are no problems that nobody been trying to solve. It's pretty much extreme. Like you will never find a problem that nobody been trying to solve. And most likely, if it's not, then you either solving the problem that is unsolvable at this time, or nobody cares about them, or the current solutions are good enough, so there is no point to solve it. So you need to investigate your competition, the current solutions, how people do it, how it is important, if they are paying money for this, like, and so on, but never fall into trap of I'm the first one to solve it. I have no competition. This is the golden mine. This is bullshit. This is ridiculous. Like it's never happens. Solution in search of the problem is called SISP. That's also quite often thing that you have some interesting block of code, some script. So you wrote some software or you made some technology. Like, this is a funny thing with blockchain, for example. They try to put it into everything now. They try to put it into agricultural sector, like, and the question why they need it there. Well, it doesn't matter. It's cool. It's trendy. It's the future and all this kind of crap. So beware of pushing your solution. In some cases, it might work. In most, it won't. So start with the problem. Problem is very important, and solution is very much lower priority. There are many solutions for the same problems. There are practically not many problems for for the particular solution, usually known. And okay, this is a small gift for those of you who still want to get rich fast and don't want to go through the road of finding the problem they love, this and that. So this is a very simple way how you can start a startup kinda tomorrow. And it's called like a localized proven models. So you just go there, look into the United States or some advanced market and see, okay, China, by the way, is now very advanced. UK market, and you just say, okay, like, so they do there this quick delivery, for example. This is what we did, and yeah, let's just, well, we are quite experienced. We can do it here in my country, and as soon as most of you guys are from Moldova, so you definitely have an opportunity to learn from many proven models elsewhere. In this even the one for example, I'm talking right now, this instant delivery, it's a proven model. You just go and do this. If you have enough cash, if you have enough passion, you will just do it. There is another examples of like bigger things, right? So Google, for example, right, the search engine, and I'm originally Russian, so there is a big Russian search engine, Yandex. It's now out, like half of its business is now elsewhere. They do the driving, autonomous driving. They do the deliveries, the food, and everything. So it's a very tech thing. But originally they started as just copying the proven idea of Google. So again, it depends on how you want to do it. You can practice a little bit on just trying to localize. Investors love it really much, I can tell you. So if you really want to raise some funds sooner than later, you just go there and say, hey, look, nobody is doing this here. I can pull it out. The model is proven. The market is big. I'm not a big lover of that. It's more about the business than the startup. So, but as you can see, I'm doing it from time to time. Final test. So once you, and I would like jumping into the part of solution. So today we discussed the problem, right? How to define the problem, but the final test, once you collect it and you say, hey, this is the problem, it exists. I have kind of validated it, and this is the solution that exists, and you just need to write it down into so-called one-liner, one sentence, and it should answer this conditions, under these conditions. So it should be one personal and honest story, how you solve one clear problem with one simple feature. So no more complicated than that. There is a famous mental model. It's called Occam's razor. There is a famous philosopher. He'd been a monk, Irish monk in some medieval times. He defined this. He coined this model that if something can be explained simple enough, it shouldn't be explained in a more complicated way, right? You shouldn't try to describe your problem in 5 minutes if you can describe it in 10 seconds. That's the power of elevator pitch. So normally, if you nailed something, it is simple enough. It's not even normal. It's like in 99% of cases, if you nail something, real problem, and you nail the real solution, you can put it down as simple as on this slide. Like, for example, why I love still the idea of like instant grocery delivery, because like get your groceries via mobile app in 15 minutes. That's it. So I don't need to explain as much. So final test, and yeah, my last forward is to win is to stay in the game, guys. It's more about the journey. I don't want to sound sugary or sunny here. Yeah, it's really about live another day, but not just another day solving the problem you love. And if you solving it long enough, you will win. That's I can guarantee you, because the majority of your competitors will just die. No, just because you will really nail it. You will really find an insight. You will just dig so deep enough that you will build. Um, you will disrupt the industry. You will find where the trigger is. So thank you a lot. I mm, I'll leave my unfortunately I forgot to make the slide of my contacts. So in case you would like to contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Andrei Subotin. So you can write me. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Right now we have around 20 minutes. Evgeny, how much time we have for the questions to answer?
Yeah, more or less 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm switching off the sharing, and hopefully the streaming comes, I guess.
Yeah, everything's okay. So can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for sharing this knowledge with us, your knowledge and yeah, your experience interaction. So I have a couple of questions. I will mix it with questions from the audience, if you don't mind. And first question, so how many startups you tried and failed? And in addition to that, so how many startups actually are in your portfolio right now as an investor?
So I failed around like 12 times, as I mentioned in my initial slide. I see the camera is lagging, but the voice is streaming. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I won't move. Yeah, and I they've been couple when I really started, just when I was 22 years old. I had probably 3 startups. Not that all of them really failed. Not really that I lost money on them. Some of them been just break even, or I earned literally small money. But I still consider them as a failure because, but they led to something else, right? And even recently, like I had the last couple of years, I had like 5 or 6 failures. Like not each one not in a big money, but combined it's quite a cash loss. But it's okay, like that's how it works. Currently, I just started investing this year. It's naturally evolved as a mentoring because people just started to ask for my advice. So once I see there is an interest in startup, why not? So I have now 2, and the third is coming. So yeah, just let's say 2.5 startups in my portfolio.
I see. You were talking about co-founders. So you were talking about, so it will be better to have at least 1 or 2 co-founders. Do you have any advice about best, mix combination of co-founders? So because obviously it should be like business and technical, or based on your, let's say, because you saw a lot of startups, I believe, as a mentor, as investor. So do you have any your own opinion on that about the best combination of the best team of co-founders?
Yep. I guess I mentioned it on one of slides. It's the best combination is always the sales guy, the product guy, and the operations guy. And actually, it doesn't matter which industry you are in. It's a very good example how my current sort of fresh is. I'm more a front end guy. I'm a business developer. My uh, one co-founder is the CTO, so he's all about writing the backend and the application. And the other one is a fully operational guy, so he's down to earth for managing our dark stores, like the delivery and so on. So that's how normally you should combine, and this is the ideal position to scale. Yeah, to have these three competences.
I see. Thank you. You were talking about 3 years in your pocket, so that all founders should be backed for 3 years. How about this? Stay hungry, stay foolish.
It's well, I believe this statement of this quote of Steve Jobs. He said it during his speech in Stanford. I believe he meant a different thing. What he actually meant there was that stay hungry for the new ideas. Like stay hungry for stay open. And stay foolish, meaning like don't be conservative, right? Don't think you know it all. So that's the original meaning, in my view, what he meant. But if you are saying like in perspective that less money gives you more pressure, yeah. This is a very interesting thing because I've been under pressure several times in my business. You will have pressure, trust me. And you are not able to problem, I think that money will help you really. To be frank, it's all about your intrinsic motivation to really solve the problem, your willingness to talk to customers to help them. And if you don't do this, money won't like the scarcity of money will just bring to the scarcity of your mindset. And yeah, you can try. Tell me later if it worked out.
I'm curious because so you actually started your company from scratch. I mean, Richie Group and all other startups, but so we're talking about Richie because you grew it till 20 million euros annual turnover. So if we address to the book Hard Things About Hard Things, I think it calls. So there are different, it requires different knowledge on different stage of development of the company. So how did you learn on each of the stage to be suitable to a company, to the stage of development, to employees, etc., etc.? How you went through this?
Unfortunately, I lost you in the middle of your question. So if you
how you educated yourself? How did you educate yourself while going through the stages of development of your company and the Rich Group while it grew?
Well, first, I appreciate co-founder. He really helped me to to reflect moments when I need to change, and I hope I did the same. This is the power of having a co-founder. So you reflect on each other. It's hard to explain. It's not just about that I read a lot of books. It's now that I try to hire people. It's working because I just see that.
Yeah, we are losing you and the voice as well.
Okay. So let me try to share the presentation, and probably the things will go smoother now. Just a second, because it worked fine right before I started to stream my video. No,
but we still had your video, so I'm not sure if somehow connected.
Okay. So how about right now?
BC your presentation, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just stopped streaming the video because I hope it's now the sound at least would be more consistent. So definitely I read some books. Definitely I to be frank, it's and I don't think this is something that you guys should bother about right now, because probably keep the feedback loop open. This is, you need to keep the feedback loop open with your customers, definitely, because this is how you adapt. Adaptability is probably the most important evolutionary skill. And by the way, when we talk about Ilmas, for example, it's not that he is the smartest, he's just the guy who created the fastest feedback loop. He's just making 10 100 times more mistakes than any of us on the daily basis. And that's probably how you survive the scaling, because you stay open to the market, you keep delegating the internal stuff to people you hire. Find your Rabbi, it's called like the advisor or mentor, who can help you with that. But probably keep in mind that adaptability, it's not the biggest who win, it's the fastest, right? So build feedback loops with your employees, with the market. That should help you to evolve.
Thank you. So considering your, let's say, experience, your background, do you think you saw more problems around to solve when you were younger, or now when you are more experienced?
Oh, no. There is plenty of problems to solve. I think now I see much more problems to solve, but I see much less problems I'm willing to solve very quickly, and even understand whether they're solvable, they are worth being solved, but you see, my presentation is more about early on, try to listen to yourself, right? Try to not compromise, not follow the hype, not follow this. This is the world where you don't need to, run after money. You can live a nice life. Most of you don't even need to do a startup. I mean, like, in the end of the day, I'll be happy if most of you guys just do some solopreneurship or entrepreneurship that makes you happy, rather than doing startups and like dying every day. Because I tell you, like, it's a crazy thing. Startups are hard, like, and it's just getting harder with any step. And and really builds up, and yeah, you end up in the wrong place.
And I think the last question. So when we are talking about validation of the problem, so you are talking about talking with experts, talking with a customer. Can you do something else if we exclude talking to any other tools to validate the problem, or it's the only one, or the most valuable?
There are only two ways how you can validate the problem. One is just to find that it's validated by somebody, and I expressed almost last slide. Yeah, just this is inevitable. You got to talk to, and there is no way. I mean, there might be like another 5, 10 ways, but they're useless if you don't talk to your customers and experts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's practically like you're just trying to probably the motivation of the question. I don't want to say that I'm right, but probably one of the motivations of this. Well, I don't really want to talk to the customers. Andre, tell me the way how I can validate my problem, build the startup without talking with anybody. And I tell you, like 90%, if you just talk to your users, customers, experts, and you build expertise in that, you big feedback, you don't need anything else. This is the funny thing. Like, don't really think about the more complex stuff. Look at the simple stuff. Occam's razor. You know, like if something can be done simple, just do it simple. It talks to the users, don't go the other ways. Hello?
Yeah, we lost a couple of times the signal. So, but yeah, I think more or less the answer is clear. I don't see any other questions, so I would like then to thank you, Andrei, for your great presentation, for sharing experience with us, for answering questions, and for supporting our students and the overall program. Thank you so much. Have a
Evgeny,
nice
thank you very much for inviting me. Even this is my first experience, like a podcast type of experience. I see some nice faces now in the comments. Gents, ladies, thank you a lot for your time listening to me. Hopefully, I gave you some value. I haven't wasted your time. Again, if you would be willing to ask me some questions, you can find me on LinkedIn. Evgeny, thank you, and have a nice evening, all of you guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.